After my wife blocked my number for 2 weeks, I exposed her affair, left the marriage, served divorce papers, and calmly reclaimed my future forever for good. I'm 34, work as a civil engineer for the state transportation department. Not glamorous, but stable with good benefits, and I make around $92,000 before overtime. I met Sarah, 31 female, at a friend's housewarming about 6 years ago. She was working as a marketing consultant, making maybe $45,000, but always talked about how she was going to make it big. We hit it off, moved in together after 8 months, and got married a year after that. Looking back, there were red flags I ignored because, well, she was gorgeous, and I thought I'd hit the jackpot. First red flag, she lost her job 3 months after we got married and decided she wanted to find herself before jumping back into the corporate world. That finding herself phase lasted 2 years while I paid for everything. Second red flag, every time I got a bonus or raise, suddenly she needed a new designer bag or wanted to renovate, part of the condo I'd bought before we even met. I was too blind to see it then. Anyway, I always thought I understood what betrayal felt like that time my college roommate stole my thesis idea and presented it as his own, or when my buddy Mike screwed me out of $3,000 in our fantasy football league. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what I discovered on my phone that night. All calls from this contact will be silenced. I stared at the screen in my hotel room in Savannah, trying to process what I was seeing. My wife had muted my calls, not just any calls, my calls, for 2 whole weeks. The same 2 weeks I'd been away handling my mom's funeral arrangements. The same 2 weeks I'd been calling her every single day, sometimes twice, desperately needing to hear her voice while I watched my mom slip away. The cancer took Mom fast, too damn fast. 1 minute she was complaining about her back hurting, the next the doctors were telling us she had 3 months. She barely made it 6 weeks. 6 weeks from diagnosis to death. I still can't wrap my head around it. Every night in that cold hotel room, I'd call Sarah. And every night I'd get her voicemail, or a quick text saying she was swamped with a new client project, or having drinks with Jessica from college. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife, my partner, the one person who was supposed to have my back when life kicked me in the balls. Looking at those words on my screen, all calls from this contact will be silenced. I felt like someone had punched a hole straight through my chest. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just sat there in that quiet hotel room with the weight of both my mother's death and my wife's betrayal crushing me. Mom was everything to me. She raised me by herself after Dad walked out when I was 8, worked 2 jobs to put me through college, never complained, never made me feel like a burden. And now she was gone. And the one person I needed most had deliberately chosen to silence me in my darkest hour. I decided to fly back early. Mom's house was cleared out, the funeral was over, and the paperwork could wait. I needed to be home, needed to feel Sarah's arms around me, needed to finally let myself break down and grieve properly. Our condo was empty when I got there. The silence was almost painful after the chaos of the past weeks. I crashed on the couch, too exhausted to even make it to the bedroom, when I heard the notification. Her iPad was sitting on the coffee table, screen lighting up with a text. I miss you already. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to take you to Cabo once the divorce is final. You deserve way better than that boring engineer. I'm not the type to snoop. Never have been. But something in my gut twisted hard when I saw those words. With shaking hands, I picked up the iPad and stared at the message. The sender's name wasn't visible on the lock screen, but the preview was crystal clear. I put it down exactly where I found it and called her one more time. I watched the iPad as I did. Nothing. No notification, no ring. That's when I checked her phone settings through our shared iCloud account, a feature we'd set up years ago in case one of us lost our phone. And there it was. My contact had been muted exactly 2 weeks ago, the exact day I flew out after getting the news about Mom's terminal diagnosis. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't an accident. She'd silenced me on purpose during the worst moment of my entire life. While I was picking out my mother's casket, crying myself to sleep in empty hotel rooms, my wife was living a completely different life, one where I was nothing but an inconvenience to be muted. I heard keys in the door and quickly wiped the tears from my face. She walked in and froze, shock written all over her face, followed by something that looked an awful lot like guilt before she composed herself. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, carrying shopping bags from Nordstrom and Saks. "You're back early," she said, voice tight. "No, I missed you, or I'm so sorry about your mom. Just annoyance that I'd ruined whatever plans she had." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I was staring at a stranger. 5 years of marriage, and suddenly I didn't recognize the woman standing in front of me. Her nails were freshly done, new highlights in her hair, wearing a $400 dress I'd never seen when she was supposedly so busy with work she couldn't even answer my calls. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "But first, I need to know something." "Why did you mute my calls?" Her face went pale. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't some misunderstanding or a simple mistake. This was the beginning of the end. The silence between us felt heavy, almost solid. She clutched her shopping bags against her chest like they were more important than whatever conversation we were about to have. "My phone's been acting up," she finally said with an eye roll. "I've been missing notifications from everyone. You know how iPhones are." A lie. Such an easy, obvious lie. I could have disproven it in seconds by showing her the settings on her account, but I didn't bother. What was the point? She dropped her bags on the counter and started pulling out clothes with the tag still on. "Look what I found on sale! Only $280, down from $350. She actually expected me to be excited about her shopping spree while I was dealing with my mom's death. "Your mother would have loved this scarf," she added, holding up some overpriced piece of fabric. "It's too bad she never got to see it." Too bad she never got to see it. My mom was dead. And that's what she had to say. Not "I'm sorry for your loss" or "how are you holding up," but "too bad she never got to see my new scarf." I nodded slowly and stood up. "I'm tired from the flight. I need a shower and rest." Once I was alone in the bathroom with the shower running to mask any sound, I began my investigation. The iPad had given me a clue, but I needed more. I logged into our shared cloud account from my phone. Within minutes, I had my answers. Location history showed regular visits to an address in the wealthy part of town where all the doctors and lawyers live. Text messages with a contact saved under Jess's yoga class. An obvious attempt to hide who it really was, especially since Sarah hadn't been to a yoga class in the 3 years since I paid for her annual membership. Photos I was never meant to see, her with some guy with slicked back hair and a Rolex in restaurants I could never afford on my civil servant salary. All while my mother was dying. All while I was calling her, desperate for comfort. The betrayal wasn't just the affair. It was the deliberate choice to silence me during the most painful period of my life. It was calculated cruelty. When I came out of the bathroom, she was sitting on our bed, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong. "Are you hungry?" she asked, with a smile that never reached her eyes. "I could order something, though we should probably do something cheap since you've been spending so much on hotels," as if I'd been on vacation instead of watching my mom die. "Sure," I replied, matching her casual tone. "Whatever you want." That night, we ate takeout in near silence, with the TV providing background noise neither of us was listening to. I watched her carefully, noticing how often she checked her phone, angling the screen away from me. When it vibrated once, her whole body tensed before she excused herself to the bathroom. While she was gone, I thought about confronting her immediately. The evidence was overwhelming. The rage building inside me was screaming for release. But something stopped me. A cold, calculating voice that urged patience. Mom's voice, actually. She always told me, never make decisions when you're angry. Sleep on it first. I wasn't going to react emotionally. I wasn't going to give Sarah the satisfaction of seeing me break down. Instead, I made a decision. This wouldn't be a messy, emotional confrontation. This would be a strategic dismantling of the life we'd built. She had betrayed me during my darkest hour. The consequences would be deliberate and absolute. That night, we slept on opposite sides of the bed, a million miles between us. I felt her glance at me occasionally, probably wondering if I suspected anything. I pretended to sleep, my mind racing with next steps. Morning came, and she announced she had to go meet a client for a few hours on a Saturday. Another transparent lie. I nodded, told her to take her time. The door had barely closed behind her when I began moving with purpose. First, I checked our finances. Thank God I never added her name to the deed of my condo. We had a joint checking account with about $8,500 in it, mostly my money, and a savings account with another $42,000, again mostly from my income since she hadn't worked a real job in years. I called my bank and transferred all but $500 from both accounts into a new account in my name only. Next, I contacted a divorce attorney I'd researched during my sleepless night, leaving a message requesting an urgent appointment. Then, I began documenting everything: screenshots of messages, photos, location data, clinical, methodical, detached. My phone buzzed with a message from her running late. "Don't wait up for dinner. Might be back super late. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I drove to the address I'd found in her location history. It was an upscale high-rise with a doorman and valet parking. I parked across the street and waited. 20 minutes later, I watched as she pulled up in our car. The SUV I'd bought last year that she constantly complained was too boring and practical, and handed the keys to the valet like she owned the place. She was wearing a new outfit, hair done, full makeup, not exactly client meeting attire. I took photos, noting the time and date. More evidence. Back at our apartment, I checked the credit card statements. There it was. Thousands of dollars in charges over the past 2 weeks. Restaurants, hotels, boutiques, spas, all while I was arranging my mother's funeral. I packed a small bag with essentials. I wasn't running away. This was tactical. I needed space to think clearly, to plan my next move without her watching my every reaction. As I was about to leave, her iPad lit up again. Another message from Jess' yoga class. Left you a surprise in the kitchen drawer. Wear it tonight. So casual, so comfortable. This wasn't new. This had been going on long before my mother's diagnosis. The realization should have crushed me. Instead, it hardened my resolve. I had just lost my mother, the one person who had loved me unconditionally. Now I was losing my wife. Not to death, but to her own selfish choices. The pain was transforming into something cold and focused. I checked into a Marriott downtown. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I stared at my phone. Her contact information stared back at me. 5 years of marriage, countless messages and calls, memories and promises. With 3 taps, I blocked her number. It wasn't an emotional decision. It was strategic. She wanted silence. I would give her silence. But unlike her, I would do it openly, directly, and permanently. This was just the beginning of my response to her betrayal. She had no idea what was coming next. My phone exploded with notifications throughout the night. Texts, missed calls, voicemails, all from her. I didn't read or listen to any of them. Each desperate attempt at contact only confirmed what I already knew. She wasn't concerned about me. She was concerned about herself, about being caught. The next morning, I met with the divorce attorney, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who listened without judgment as I laid out the situation. I presented the evidence I had gathered, the messages, photos, location data, financial records showing how she'd been spending my money while I was away. She nodded, taking notes. "You've done more homework than most clients," she commented. "That will serve you well, especially the financial documentation." We discussed strategy. Georgia being a no-fault state meant infidelity wouldn't necessarily impact the division of assets, but my documentation would help establish a pattern of deception that could prove useful during negotiations. "The fact that you owned the condo before marriage and kept it solely in your name is hugely beneficial," she explained. "And the financial records showing her spending habits during your mother's illness, well, judges are human too." I signed the necessary paperwork to initiate divorce proceedings, feeling a strange sense of calm as I wrote my signature. "Most people are emotional wrecks when they first come to see me," the attorney observed as we concluded our meeting. "You seem focused." "I buried my mother last week," I replied. "This is just another funeral, except this time I'm not grieving something real." Leaving her office, I checked my voicemail. 23 messages. The last one caught my attention. It wasn't from Sarah, but from her father, Robert. "Listen, son. We need to talk. Sarah's beside herself. Whatever happened, you two can work it out. She says there's been a misunderstanding. Call me back." So she'd already rallied her family, playing the victim. I deleted the message without responding. Back at the hotel, I created a list of everyone who needed to be informed about our separation: friends, family, our landlord. I wasn't going to hide or be ashamed. I hadn't done anything wrong. I drafted a simple, factual message that I would send at the appropriate time. "I wanted to let you know that Sarah and I are divorcing due to her infidelity during my mother's illness. I appreciate your respect for my privacy during this time. No emotional appeals, no details, just the truth." My phone rang again. Her mother this time. I declined the call, then another from a mutual friend. The campaign to pressure me had begun. I turned my phone off completely and focused on my next steps. I logged into our Netflix and changed the password. Same with Hulu, Disney Plus, and every other subscription I paid for. Small but satisfying. Next, I called my HR department and removed her from my health insurance. She'd been so proud of quitting her job with benefits because she could just use mine. Not anymore. I logged into my investment accounts and removed her as a beneficiary. Then I called my life insurance company and did the same. One by one, I methodically removed her from every aspect of my financial life. She had wanted a rich man. Well, she was about to learn what it meant to actually support herself. The divorce paperwork was filed. My attorney assured me we'd done everything properly. Now came the hardest part, waiting. Waiting for her to be served, waiting for the legal wheels to turn. On the fourth day, I received a text from Jake, my buddy at work. Dude, your wife is here in the office lobby, looks pissed. Security wants to know what to do. I felt a flash of anger at this invasion of my workplace. She was escalating, trying to force a confrontation on her terms. I texted back, tell security to escort her out. I'll handle this. I called her directly from my office phone. When she answered, the hope in her voice was palpable. You finally called, she said. We need to talk in person. What is wrong with you? The accounts are empty. My cards aren't working. Please leave my workplace now, I replied, keeping my voice level. If you want to communicate, do it through my attorney. Her contact information was in the papers you received yesterday. Papers? Her voice cracked. What papers? Are you kidding me right now? So she was pretending she hadn't been served. Another manipulation tactic. You know exactly what I'm referring to. Leave now, or I'll have security remove you. Can't do this to me, she screamed. After everything I've done for you, who's going to pay for my car, the condo, my new Peloton? I hung up before she could continue. Through my office window, I watched as security escorted her from the building. She looked up, scanning the windows as if trying to spot me, mascara running down her face. I stepped back, out of sight. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was him, her lover. This has gone too far. You're hurting her. Man to man, we need to talk. You have no idea who you're messing with. The audacity was almost laughable. I blocked the number without responding. That night, I returned to the condo when I knew she wouldn't be there. I needed to get more of my things and check on the property. When I opened the door, I froze. The place was trashed, literally. Clothes thrown everywhere, dishes smashed, pictures of us ripped apart. She'd gone into full meltdown mode. I walked through each room, documenting the destruction with photos, my gaming setup smashed, my collection of vintage comic books ripped to shreds, my mother's antique jewelry box shattered on the floor. I felt a wave of cold rage as I photographed my mother's keepsakes destroyed on the floor. But I didn't clean anything up. This was just more evidence. I called the police and filed a report for property damage. The officer who responded looked around and whistled low. Divorce? He asked sympathetically. I nodded. Seen it before, brother. Document everything. Change the locks if it's your place. Since the deed was in my name only, I called a locksmith on the spot and had all the locks changed. Then I texted Sarah. The police have documented the property damage. Don't attempt to enter the condo again. All communication through attorneys only. Within minutes, my phone exploded with calls and texts from her, her parents, even her sister, who I'd met maybe twice. I ignored them all. My attorney was thrilled with the new evidence. This strengthens our case significantly, she said. Destruction of property, particularly the sentimental items related to your recently deceased mother, shows a vindictive character that won't play well. The next day, I received a cease and desist letter from some lawyer I'd never heard of, claiming I'd illegally evicted Sarah and stolen her possessions. My attorney laughed when I forwarded it to her. Amateur hour, she said. The condo is solely in your name, purchased before marriage. She has no claim to it as a residence without being on the deed in Georgia. And as for possessions, we have detailed documentation of what's yours. We responded with our own letter outlining the property damage and stating that any items genuinely belonging to Sarah could be collected under supervision after a full inventory was completed. The financial reality was hitting her hard. Her credit cards, which were actually on my accounts, were canceled. The allowance she'd become accustomed to was gone. The luxurious lifestyle she'd been living on my salary had evaporated overnight. Through mutual friends, I heard she was staying with her lover, the guy with the Rolex, but apparently his enthusiasm was waning now that he was expected to actually pay for her expenses. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding. I moved back into my condo, cleaned up the mess, and began replacing what had been destroyed. I put my mother's remaining keepsakes in a safe deposit box where they couldn't be touched. At work, I threw myself into a big infrastructure project, earning praise from management and positioning myself for a promotion. The focus felt good, productive. Sarah's attempts at contact became increasingly desperate. The tone shifted from anger to pleading. I made a mistake, she texted from a new number. Please, we can work this out. I didn't mean to hurt you. I forwarded the message to my attorney without responding and blocked the new number. A month into the divorce proceedings, my attorney called with news. "We've received an unusual request from Sarah's lawyer," she said, sounding amused. "They want to discuss a settlement. Specifically, they're asking for financial support." "On what grounds?" I asked. "Apparently, Sarah is claiming she sacrificed her career to support yours and therefore deserves ongoing support." I laughed bitterly. "She quit her $45,000 job to sit at home and spend my money. How exactly did that support my career?" "Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. Her new boyfriend, Mr. Rolex, turns out he's not quite what he seemed." My attorney had done some digging. Sarah's lover wasn't the wealthy businessman he pretended to be. The Rolex was fake. The apartment was a short-term rental paid for with credit cards that were now maxed out. His supposed investment firm was little more than a one-man operation with a fancy website. "They were both playing a role," my attorney explained. "He was pretending to be rich to attract women like Sarah. She was pretending to be a trophy wife looking to upgrade. Neither of them actually had money. The irony was almost too perfect. But it got better. Sarah's parents, who had been coldly distant during our entire marriage because they'd wanted her to marry a doctor or lawyer, not a government worker, were now refusing to help her financially. They were embarrassed by the divorce and her behavior. "So what does she want?" I asked. "She's asking for $5,000 a month for 2 years to get back on her feet and help with her transition back to the workforce." I didn't even need to respond. My attorney could hear my answer in my silence. "That's what I thought," she said. "I'll let them know we'll see them in court." 2 days later, I received a text from Sarah's lover. "We need to talk. Not about her, about something else. Business opportunity could be mutually beneficial." Curious, I agreed to meet him at a public coffee shop. When I arrived, I barely recognized him. Gone was the slicked-back hair and designer clothes. He looked like a man defeated. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, nervously fidgeting with his watch. A Timex now, not the fake Rolex. "I'll get straight to the point. I know I screwed you over. I'm not asking forgiveness." "What do you want then?" I asked coolly. "Sarah's been telling everyone that you're the bad guy, that you cut her off without warning, that you're hiding money, that you abused her." This didn't surprise me. And it's all lies. All of it. She told me the same garbage about you when we met, that you were controlling, cold, never gave her anything. But I've seen how she operates now. He ran a hand through his hair. "She's unstable, man. When she realized I wasn't actually rich, she went ballistic, destroyed my stuff too." He pulled out his phone and showed me pictures of his apartment, slashed furniture, broken electronics, clothes cut to pieces. The same pattern. "Why show me this?" I asked. "Because I'm willing to testify about everything. The lies, the manipulation, how she bragged about muting your calls while your mom was dying." He looked genuinely disgusted. "I've done some shitty things, but that's just cold." I studied him carefully. "What do you get out of this?" He looked down. "She stole from me. About $7,000 in cash and some jewelry that actually was real. Family heirlooms. I want them back, and I know she pawned them. I don't have the money to hire a lawyer to go after her. It was a deal with the devil, but sometimes the devil has his uses." I had my attorney draw up a statement for him to sign detailing everything he told me, plus additional information about Sarah's spending habits and behavior. In exchange, I agreed to help him recover the value of his stolen property if his testimony proved valuable. The day of our court date arrived. Sarah showed up looking every bit the wronged wife, modest dress, minimal makeup, even carrying a Bible. The act might have worked if we hadn't been prepared. Her lawyer presented her case first. How she'd sacrificed for my career. How I'd cut her off financially without warning. How devastated she was by my cruel and vindictive behavior during her grief over my mother. When it was our turn, my attorney was methodical. First, the financial records showing Sarah's spending spree during my mother's illness. Then the police report documenting the destruction of my property, including my mother's keepsakes, photos of the destroyed condo, documentation showing I'd owned the property before marriage, and finally, our surprise witness. When Sarah's lover walked in, the color drained from her face. Her lawyer, clearly blindsided, asked for a recess, which was denied. What followed was the most satisfying hour of testimony I could have imagined. He detailed their affair, including how it had started nearly a year before my mother's illness. He confirmed that Sarah had deliberately muted my calls, laughing about it while I was arranging my mother's funeral. He described how she'd talked about divorcing me and taking half of everything once she'd secured her upgrade. By the time he finished, Sarah was openly sobbing, not from remorse but from rage and humiliation. Her carefully constructed narrative had crumbled completely. The judge was unmoved by her tears. His ruling was decisive. 1. The condo remained entirely mine, with no equity for Sarah. 2. Our assets would be divided, but with consideration for the documented financial misconduct on her part. 3. Her request for spousal support was denied completely. 4. She was ordered to pay for the property damage she'd caused. It was a total victory. As we left the courtroom, Sarah tried to approach me but was blocked by my attorney. "This isn't over," she hissed, mascara streaming down her face. "You've ruined my life." I just looked at her calmly. "You silenced me when I needed you most. I'm just returning the favor." The aftermath was swift. Sarah found herself with no husband, no boyfriend, no home, no money, and a damaged reputation. Her fantasy of upgrading to a wealthier man had backfired spectacularly. Within a week, I received a desperate email. "Please, I have nowhere to go. My parents won't take me in. I have no money for rent. Can we please just talk? I've learned my lesson." I didn't respond. Then came texts from her friends. "Sarah's living in her car. This has gone too far. You've made your point." I blocked those numbers too. Finally, a message from her sister. She's truly hit rock bottom. She lost her phone, got fired from her new job for emotional instability, and had to sell most of her stuff. She's begging for another chance, not as your wife, just for some help, until she can get back on her feet. I considered this for a long time, not because I was softening, but because I wanted my response to be perfect. Tell Sarah I've muted her life just like she muted my calls. The difference is, I'm upfront about it. It's been a year now since the divorce was finalized. I wish I could say the journey was easy, but grief never is, whether it's for a mother or a marriage. The difference is in how you honor what's lost. I received a promotion at work, along with a significant raise. The condo I once shared with Sarah has been completely renovated, every trace of her taste removed and replaced with things that actually matter to me. I even adopted a dog from the shelter, something Sarah had always refused because it might mess up her clothes. Last month, I ran into Sarah's father at a local grocery store. I braced for hostility, but he surprised me. "You look well," he said, eyes assessing me carefully. "I am well," I replied honestly. He nodded. "She's not. Had to move back home, finally working retail, still blames everyone but herself. I'm sorry to hear that." And part of me actually was, not because I wished her well, but because some people never learn. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "when her mother tried the same stunt on me 30 years ago, I forgave her. Biggest mistake of my life. Spent 30 years with someone who never respected me." He extended his hand. "You're a stronger man than I was." 2 weeks ago, I heard through mutual friends that Sarah is telling people she's found herself and is stronger than ever after surviving an abusive relationship. The narrative has shifted again, painting herself as the victim rather than the architect of her own downfall. It doesn't matter. The people who know the truth know it. The people who matter believe me. Yesterday, I visited my mother's grave. I sat there talking to her as the afternoon sun warmed the headstone, told her about the past year, about finding my footing again, about the lessons learned. "You always said to pay attention to how people treat you when it's inconvenient for them," I told her. "Best advice you ever gave me." As I was leaving the cemetery, my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Please don't hang up." Sarah's voice, smaller than I remembered. I need closure. Why won't you even talk to me? After 5 years together, don't I deserve at least that?" I thought about it for a moment. "You know what real closure is, Sarah? It's accepting that some bridges can't be unburned. It's understanding that actions have permanent consequences." "I've changed," she insisted. "I've learned—" "No," I interrupted calmly. "You haven't. Because you're still making this about what you deserve, what you need. Even now, you can't see past yourself." I ended the call and blocked the number, adding it to the dozens already on my list. The phone in my pocket now contains only connections that have proven themselves reliable, people who would never silence me in my darkest hour, people who understand that love without respect is just manipulation wearing a convincing mask. Some people call my response to her betrayal extreme. "You completely destroyed her," one former friend remarked. "Don't you think that's overkill?" But that misses the point. I didn't destroy her. Her own choices did that. I simply refused to shield her from the consequences. The most important lesson from all of this hasn't been about her betrayal, but about my response to it. I've learned that dignity isn't measured by what others do to you, but by how you refuse to compromise your self-worth in the aftermath. She silenced me for 2 weeks when I needed her most. In response, I didn't just mute her. I showed her what it truly means to be cut off. Not temporarily, not in anger, but permanently and with the calm certainty of a decision that honors my worth. As I finish writing this, my new phone pings with messages. From friends checking in, from colleagues respecting my input, from my dog walker sending pictures of my happy rescue pup. These are the connections I've chosen to keep. When someone shows you who they truly are, believe them. When someone demonstrates what you're worth to them, believe that too. And then act accordingly.